Good afternoon. Good to be here. And I was looking through the agenda, and it seems to be a power-packed day at the Asian Women's Leadership Summit 2024. So hopefully you've enjoyed the conversations. Binu just told me before I came on the stage that the first two panels were really amazing. Or three, is it? There have been three panels which have been really amazing. So we've got a task to live up to there. All right. But we've got a topic which hopefully kind of rounds up the entire conversation that this summit is all about, right? So we want to focus on how does all these advancements that we are witnessing these days in artificial intelligence, robotics, technology by and large, how does it really impact women leaders in particular, such as yourself? So that's the topic of our conversation. And I've got a wonderful panel up here with me. Looking forward to the conversations here and the beautiful insights that they have to share. So as you probably noticed from the introductions, there's a wealth of experience and very, very interesting perspectives that is coming your way as part of this discussion. So let's begin. My first question is for you, Shihara. Oh, yes, please. Thank you. So as we just start this conversation, let's begin with understanding that how is it that women in general, right, especially women in the workplace, how should they embrace artificial intelligence, all these technological changes that we are witnessing in the recent years? What's the best way to embrace these changes, stay ahead of the curve, if you will? So your thoughts, please.
Great question. Thank you. And thanks for having me here. I'm going to start to answer that question with some data. I'm an engineer from Cisco, so you're going to get some data from me. And I'm going to read that out so I get it right. So according to a lot of the research that's been shown, that 79% of the work that will be affected by AI is going to be work that is traditionally done by women. Another stat that we're getting from the World Economic Forum is that by 2025, that's just next year, we're going to see the work done in the workplace to be equivalent between machines and humans. Right, so that's 2025. And then for those that have been interested in this, you probably follow someone like Ray Kurzweil, who talks about the singularity, which is the moment that AI is expected to be more capable than human intelligence. And that is expected to come by 2045, so 20 years later. The World Economic Forum also has put out some stats that I think it's 85 million jobs are going to be affected or disappear as a result of the industrial revolution we're going through. But the good news is 97 million new jobs will be created, right? That's 12 million net new. So that's an opportunity. I'm going to finish with one more number, which is, again, please go and read these reports. They're all available. The gender gap report that the World Economic Forum puts out each year. And the most recent one says that it'll be another 130 years before there's gender equality in the workplace globally. So if we throw out all those numbers, what does it mean in this new world, right? And so I put it to you that the only way forward is, there's two ways forward, right? And sessions like this talk about the first way quite in large ways, which is we need to systemically change, right? Systems have to change, governments have to change. That has to happen. But this panel, we're talking about more the individual. What does the individual need to do in parallel? So I put it to you that you need to embrace this change. Embrace what's out there and embrace it broadly. We talk a lot about narrow things like GenAI. And absolutely, you should embrace GenAI, but look more broadly. Don't only look at engineering or data science or programming in terms of AI. And this is coming from an engineer. We'd love to have more women in engineering, I can tell you that, but not everyone's interested. So look at your own jobs, your own interests, your own areas of expertise, and go and learn from that perspective about artificial intelligence in general. And there's some great courses out there. I'm going to give you a few, actually. There's a Cisco one, which of course I'm going to push forward. There's IBM, does some great, very simple courses. And the other one that I really enjoyed was the Google one. And Google also has some great environments where you can go and play with this stuff. And you don't need one line of coding experience to be able to do it. So there's a lot out there that you can start to engage and understand it, and then apply it in your own area. And really try to look for ways that you can engage and engage the rest of your community, your people, at home, at work. How do you improve your life and get ahead by learning and engaging with all these capabilities that are out there? And the last thing I highly encourage everyone to do is really embrace a mindset change. Because the mindset we need moving forward is one of continuous learning, open, understanding, and really looking at this as broadly as possible and engaging with that 97 million jobs that are being created. You know, how does each one of us in this room not only embrace and take one of those jobs, but create those jobs in the future?
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shahara. Love the practical inputs of the kind of courses that one could take to kind of stay ahead of the curve, and love the data that you shared at this very start. So on the data piece, Celine, I have a question for you coming up. How can women leaders leverage data, artificial intelligence throughout, you know, their workplaces? How do they drive transformation, especially inclusion? Do you have any examples of things that you've done in your organization that you'd like to share?
Inclusion through, I think it both applies to men and women, right? But what I would just remind everybody here, and I believe, you know, all the women would feel what I'm saying, is that every woman has two jobs, right? We got our job at work and we got our job at home. I can see some people nodding. And I think this is where GenAI, you know, does help, right? We always say that GenAI is a productivity hack, right? And so the question is, how do you use GenAI tool, whether it's in your work or whether it's in your personal life, to make things more efficient, right? And one of my personal beliefs is that, you know, with the introduction of those technology, GenAI for all the content generation, you know, a traditional AI for decision making, is a way to actually reach potentially 4 days a week. You know, the Global Economic Forum is also talking about that, right? That the 4-day work week, right, with all the efficiency that is being brought by automation, GenAI, then where do we put that efficiency time, right? Is it possible to put it back into, you know, our other job, which could be, you know, taking care of our children and our family? On the way coming here, I was, you know, listening to the radio, and Synchronicity. It was talking about dual income family, right, in Singapore. It was saying that in the 1980s, 20% of the family had dual income, which means that the woman and the men were working, right? Now we are at a 60% rate, right, in average, which means that, you know, women haven't been working for that long, right? And we still need to handle the same chores at home that what we used to, right, in the past. So here in Singapore, I'm very grateful to have helpers, and, you know, you have a great support system. But still, the mental workload that we have as women in our life is something that we also need to talk about, right? And this is where I think also GenAI and the productivity hack that it brings can also alleviate some of that mental workload.
True. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So, and what do we do with that extra time, right? So it's good to hear.
I think it's a work-life balance. Give it back,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Sridhar, I have a question for you on this. As a male ally, and, you know, why do you think we need to adapt inclusive leadership strategies in this era? I mean, we've spoken about inclusive leadership for years now, and the basic premise of inclusive leadership, by and large, is around listening and avoiding unconscious biases, having empathy. Why, or is there a need for it to change? If so, why in everything that's happening around us today?
Thanks, Banesh. That's a loaded question. If you actually, as you said, is there a need to change? If we just step back and observe how technological advances has helped put into place the century-old gender biases, then we will understand how AI and robotics and others also would only go in the same direction. So to just give you all perspective, if you just step back and go to, women came into workforce in large numbers in World War I. So 30% of the workforce actually became women in World War I. And in World War I, they were not doing technology jobs. They were doing stenographing, they were doing all sorts of non-combat related jobs. Then you come to World War II, technology had moved quite a lot. Actually, around 50% of the high-tech work, which was including manufacturing bombs or M1 rifles, which is one of the most powerful rifles of World War II, were predominantly manufactured by women. You'd be surprised. So there is it's important you all understand that you don't actually lap up the myth. The truth is, women have been progressing extensively and taking advantage of technological advances consistently. So then comes World War II, then comes the whole, a large set of women come into workforce. Then economists, including Keynes, understands that to really grow GDP, you need to increase the number of people who actually are productive. While we do take a homemaker as a productive part of an economy, but the same homemaker, as I know Celine said, when she does two jobs, that's why many developed economies wouldn't be where it is if they didn't harness women power. That's exactly what economies like India are trying to do, because they're stuck because they don't have as much of women coming into high-end jobs. So if you take this continuum, the continuum starts through technology. It starts with steam engine, then it starts with the motor car, then it comes with all the home appliances, then it comes with semiconductors, and from semiconductors comes AI, isn't it? Without semiconductors, there is no AI. From AI comes the robotics. It's very clear in this continuum, while women as workforce got stuck for a very long period until technology caught up, when technology caught up, they were the ones who were able to latch into it. Because I clearly see today, now coming to your question of including workforce, today women would not be able to give this much time to demanding office scenario if all these technologies didn't enable them. So in that continuum, I think they would, or you all would, or rather already harnessing AI and robotics in a very interesting manner is what I want to sort of point to. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sridhar, and thank you for walking us through the historical journey of technological advancements right there. So, Katya, as you know, and Sridhar kind of spoke about all the empowerment that women have experienced through technology. Is there a flip side, or is there a possible flip side? Is there a possibility that there could be disempowerment that could happen with the kind of AI tools and technology that's coming out there? In your experience as a technology leader, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. Yes, there absolutely is a dark side, a flip side to all of this. I think there's great empowerment that can happen for women through the use of machine learning, through AI. It can, if you train it correctly, remove bias from hiring. But if you train it incorrectly with historical data that shows that the organisation has always hired white men and that's their preference, then the AI is going to perform exactly as trained and give you a cohort of white men to select from in order to hire. So it kind of depends on how it's trained, how it's programmed, who's included as the human in the loop for how it operates. The thing that's most distressing for me at the moment in terms of real world harms for young women, women leaders, celebrity women, is the use of generative AI to create deep fake pornography. How do you disempower a woman? You objectify her. And that's exactly what this kind of technology is being used for. There's a few really high-level examples. There was a video that came out recently of Kamala Harris, and that video also positioned her as if she had married Donald Trump, was in a relationship with him, got pregnant, had a baby that looked like Donald Trump and was wearing a little Donald Trump suit. That is a hugely negative and disempowering thing to do to a world leader. You've all seen Taylor Swift's recent, hopefully seen her recent Childless Cat Lady Instagram revert on that, because her image was taken by the Trump campaign and used and misused to show as if she was endorsing him, and she was not. So Taylor Swift is very careful with her power. She knows she has a huge following, and so she generally doesn't come out and endorse one thing or another thing or a person in this kind of political sphere. But because of the level of misinformation and deep fake artifacts that were created, she decided to come out and make her own statement and declare that she was going to support Kamala Harris, and encouraged everyone to do their own research. So we're also seeing for our young women, because this technology is so easily available, you know, teenage boys are grabbing pictures off social media of their classmates and creating deepfake pornography. This is hugely disempowering for women and creates really real-world harm. What my hope is from this, and if you're interested in the deepfake landscape, Laurie Segal is a fantastic ex-CBS journalist who does a lot of work on her mostly human Instagram account to talk about deepfakes. She did an experiment where she allowed a group of people to make it seem like she was having an illicit relationship with Mark Zuckerberg. And they were able to take her voice and clone her voice. So this kind of use of the technology, I think, is something that we actually need legislation. And I know that the EU is currently looking into legislation around this to make it a crime to do this to people, not just women, to people, to create these kinds of artifacts and misinformation. But particularly for women, I think that the objectification is how the disempowerment can happen. And I think that everyone in this audience can look at things with a skeptical eye. If you're involved in an AI project, ask, how has this been trained? Who's been involved in creating this technology? Have we got diverse voices? Were women involved? Were people from marginalised voices involved? Have we got the right set of people with eyes on this to ensure that we do not create unintended consequences, unintended negative consequences, and that we are behaving ethically and transparently and fairly? The end of my rant.
No, thank you. And I think it's important for us to realize that there is also a dark side to it, right? So just be aware of it, and legislation, like you said, is the way to go. And legislation changes will happen when the larger majority starts understanding this and starts voicing their dissent with it. So.
And while I have the microphone, I also would like to plug She Loves Data AI courses. Yeah. They're terrific.
Thank you.
Very, very for women.
All right, so there you go. You've got 2 panelists endorsing that already. So if you need another motivation to sign up for courses like these. On that note, Chiara, I have a slightly different angle or a question to ask. So there may be entrepreneurs here in the room right now or aspiring entrepreneurs. And as women entrepreneurs who are wanting to seek funding, let's say they want to start a tech venture, are there any key challenges that, in your experience, women tend to face if they want to start a company in this space?
Yes, absolutely. Again, some data from 2023 only 13.2, I think, percent of startups had female founders. That's a very, very low number. And we must look to change that. And I do think that, I mean, there are a lot of obstacles in the way for women to start companies. And there is a lot of information out there about it. But I'm going to just talk about two key areas and how we can all embrace it and try to change it. And one is, of course, you can't be what you can't see, right? That 13% is not a trigger amount of people. We've got to get more in there. And so there's not enough mentors, not enough women who've been through it. And there's not enough startup accelerators that focus on female founders, et cetera, et cetera. And there's not enough women investing as well, right? So it's on both ends of the spectrum. There's also, but having said that, the female founding companies do seem to be doing better. They have higher revenue growth, they have higher, the strategies, the business expectations tend to be better. So there's definitely a reason to invest more. The second reason I think is glaring and we can all have an effect on is female confidence, right? So startup founders need a level of risk-taking and confidence. And again, research shows that women and girls start losing their confidence at the age of 8. That is an astonishingly low and young age, well before they can be founders. So again, we all have a responsibility in this room, and because women are socialized not to take risks from birth. That is not restricted to any one culture or socioeconomic group, right? So that is something we can all do to try and increase the risk-taking capabilities and safe space for women to take risks and fail so that they can build their confidence. So that I think those are the two reasons. So I'm going to tell you a couple of ways that we can all do something about this. There are a lot of female-friendly accelerators being built up. There's one in Singapore called Accelerating Asia that has a female founder. Amra Naidu, she's fabulous. You can follow her, and you can follow her on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and you can mentor and support the startups that she supports and builds. There's also an all-female investment group called Epic Angels. Again, based out of Singapore, it's now grown globally, but another one that you can join, learn how to invest. They not only support investments of startups, but they also teach you how to invest. So you'll learn the other side of things. And by no means are they the only ones. There are plenty out there. So again, engaging with all of this, learning more, and, even to your story and example, Katja, even if you're not involved in an AI project now, if you're in the legal department in one of these companies, making sure you're asking those questions or building the apps or building the companies that can fix some of these issues, right? There's a lot of space, there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of opportunities that are out there that we can use this new technology to build. So again, I'm going to focus on that 97 million jobs that are being created, and I hope that we can encourage more women to create those jobs as we move forward.
Awesome. Thank you. And once again, love the practical advice and tips and pointing us in the right direction there. Celine, so you mentioned a little bit about work-life balance in response to the earlier question, right? So is there more, could you elaborate a little bit more in terms of what kind of benefits can women actually derive out of GenAI or other AI tools that are available for us today?
Yeah, I want also to jump in on the She Loves Data
Sure.
certification that we are also promoting through our Women Network. Thanks, Shirley, for also driving the Women Inclusion Initiative in the bank. And yeah, you know, as was previously mentioned, right? Like today we have a lot of tools available. Whether you know, I was looking at a GenAI tool for timetable management, right? And again, when you have two jobs like ma'am do, right? Organizing birthday party, activities for the kids, the holidays, and then your work, right? Like how can you make most of your time, right? This is always what we are running after. And you know, not even talking about GenAI, right? I think the fact that we are able to work remotely since COVID, right? Like the ability to take calls from, you know, outside of your office and don't have to be from, you know, like 8 to 6 at the office is also something that is empowering women, right? I mean, we were discussing last time, right? I mean, when one of the children gets sick, I don't know why, but I'm always the one that they call first, right? I'm like, they have a dad, do you know that? And who is end up going to school to pick up the kid, right? It usually is the mom, right? And, you know, I mean, we were talking about, you know, woman founder earlier, and I think also there is a reality that we all need to agree on, right? Is that women are the one who gave birth as well, right? And deliver babies. A lot of time, the entrepreneur are in their 30s. This is the same time where, you know, usually you start having kids, right? And family. And sometimes you just need to make a choice, right? I mean, I would have loved to be an entrepreneur, but I love also having my 4 children, and I needed to make a choice, right? At a point in time, this is the reality. And then you see the decline in, you know, population, right, all over the world, right? I think Singapore just reached below one kid per family, which is also, so we're required by the government to make babies, we're required by the company and by the society to be entrepreneur. You know, it's a lot of things, right? At a point in time, we only had 24 hours. And by the way, if I catch the guy who make 24 hour, the day only with 24 hour, but that's the reality, right? We have the same amount of time, and biologically, we are the one also that are, you know, able to reproduce. And so, yeah, not only, but, you know, in terms of management as well, I believe that empowering women is also empowering men, right? So I have an example in my team, right? I got one of my lead who asked me, you know, for a catch-up, and he said, okay, my wife is taking a big job in Jakarta. It's a big step up for her, but it means that I'm gonna have to take care of the 2 girls that we have, right? Bring them to their dance competition, and, you know, I might have to leave early. And I'm like, of course, right? Like, why should men be expected also to not be able to be the one that's gonna go and pick up their kids, right? Like, you know, we should also start to stop having this bias, right, towards men, right? Men are also father, and the more they take the chore at home, the more they take care of the children, the more the woman can do on the other side. Again, we all have a full-time job at home. If we can spread the task, and you've seen, you know, like big tech company, Facebook giving like 6 months of paternity leave. It's not that much for the father than it is for the mother as well, right? And the Singaporean government is also changing their law in that sense, right? So to give more time to the father to support the woman. And I think this is important, and we're going to reach only equality when you know, it would be okay for a father to say, I'm sorry, I need to leave because I need to pick up my sick kids at home, and no one asking him, why isn't your wife doing that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and makes a lot of sense. So, Sridhar, if you would like to chime into this whole conversation about, you know, getting these diverse views. So if you have men sitting at positions where all these key decisions are made, is there a scope to listen into diverse perspectives, different thought processes, and in more tech environments, since that's the theme of our conversation today?
Sure, Vignesh. There's been some very interesting conversations here on. See, if you really go to the level of leadership, which is where I think this particular conference, many of the participants here have achieved certain amount of proficiency to knock at the top level. I think something which Celine said is very important because, and I have observed it for the last 15 years, I have been managing, CXO teams, and all of them have had minimum 40% women and sometimes even 60% women. My observation is women are very good at leveraging the environment. I wouldn't even call it technology. Where leadership should come is to recognize, as you rightly said, women are different, they have responsibilities are different, they do have to two jobs. So it has to be understood at the senior leadership or the leadership of the women CXOs, it should be understood. If that understanding is there, I have personally seen the women leaders really thrive in a flexible, agile environment. They travel, they can do, but you need to give them that, you need to almost give them the comfort that you completely you're okay, that you will not be able to be available for a particular corporate event because it clashes with something which is personal. Personally, I've always created that environment, and it has really helped. And why I'm coming back to technology, I'm very confident. Actually, look about. Actually, who has leveraged technology more today? It's women who have leveraged technology. There's so much of technology at home today, which was almost drudgery, which has been taken out. If you really see, when I observe in my top team, men still go down to smoke and drink. I don't think they have still found out different ways of engaging. You know, it's the same old smoking and drinking is what's happening. But I find my women leaders have different ways of engaging. Obviously, they can't come and sit and drink over a beer and make it, but they find different ways of creating the same camaraderie with their team. So if you sit and observe, I'm quite confident that in the new era of AI, can I make a comment there? I think that it's important to clarify to all of you. AI comes as generative AI and narrow AI. So artificial generative intelligence is what, Karja was telling, which requires huge amount of regulation, and in the lack of regulation, all these unbelievable things are happening. But when you come to artificial narrow intelligence, that's what goes into robotics. So when you go to your lobby of your office, the lobby is being cleaned by a robo. The robo has been embedded with artificial narrow intelligence. It knows exactly, it's like a human being. It watches who's coming, it stops. That type of technology surely is a great enabler for women. And that's not a new technology. That's the technology which actually cooks your rice in your rice cooker. When you get into your car, you switch on your rice cooker. So by the time you go home, you have warm rice. Which is actually, so I'm of the opinion that artificial narrow intelligence is doing quite a lot to unlock the potential of women. Obviously, that is leading us, obviously I have a bias because I come from the financial services industry, which naturally has more women. So that means you can get them up into the senior leadership much easily. So those are my thoughts. I think to just wrap it up, it requires a huge amount of understanding and flexibility given to the senior leaders for them to thrive in high pressure environments. If you do that, it's not because I want to, but because naturally the performance is very good. That is why most of the time when I slowly gravitate and build high performance teams, there are more women.
Sure.
It's just an outcome.
Sure. I believe Katya has a point to make there.
I would like to dissent a little.
Sure.
I'm going to. So what you describe as, like the robot that cleans the floor or the rice cooker that turns on and all of that sort of stuff as an enabler for women, I hear that, and I hear technology treating a symptom of a systematic problem. So the empowerment of women doesn't come by treating these symptoms with technology. The empowerment of women comes from the dismantling of the system of patriarchy. And patriarchy is not men. It's not men. Patriarchy is a system by which women are less empowered and men are more empowered. And if you're treating just the symptoms with technology, it doesn't actually make meaningful change in the underlying systems that cause the inequity in the first place. So, I hear your points, but I dissent as to whether or not that's the best way to empower women.
Absolutely. So long term, it's more about changing the. There you go. Lots of agreement there for that comment, and I completely support that as well. So I have one last question for you, Katya, before I have a common question for all the panel members too, but here's one for you, Katya, before we move to that one. You work in a bank, right? Which means and even though Sridhar did mention there's plenty of female talent in financial sectors, but in your experience, do you think that when women entrepreneurs are looking for funding, very similar to the question that I asked earlier to Shara as well, especially when you're looking for funding in a traditionally male-dominated sector, do they face any specific challenges? Is there a different approach there?
Well, I think there's the example of the women founders who made up a male founder as part of their cohort of people going out for funding. And they had the male founder who didn't even exist interact with the angel investors and the other investors. This is a real story, genuine story. 2 women founders, they found that they were getting no traction with their idea as women. And so they made up this guy who didn't exist, and he was the one who went and interacted with founders, and they got investment via having the fake male founder. So you ask, are there problems here? Yeah. There is complete inequity and bias as to what women can achieve and what should be invested in, which is why one of the theme for the International Women's Day has been invest in women, count her in, make that investment. So there's huge hurdles. The fact that you would have to make up a fake dude to help you get your thing off the ground is saddening. So that's one aspect of it.
Wow.
I think in our organisation, so Standard Chartered is an incredibly diverse group of people. So we're in 60 markets around the world for a start, which means that we have pretty much every family background and race represented in the organisation. We are a very open organisation to any kind of person, however you want to show up at work in terms of your authenticity, your true self. Marginalised groups are very much supported in the organisation. So I think from my perspective in banking, in my bank, I see a great deal of equity around in terms of whose voices are getting heard.
Wonderful.
It's not to say it's perfect. It's not perfect. No organisation is perfect, and there's going to be the cliques and the boys' clubs and all of those sorts of things. But I've found that calling people in is a way, because calling out is a thing, but calling out generally makes people feel attacked.
Correct.
And then they put up a wall and get defensive. So if you call them in and say, hey, let's reflect on the thing that just happened there. What do you think you were trying to do there, and how do you think it landed? Creating space for that kind of conversation, I think, is helpful. Specifically in the investment space, so Standard Chartered also has SC Ventures, and part of the ventures that we select to invest in will be looking at the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion of the people who are involved in that venture. So speaking just specifically about my organisation, those are the reflections that I see. But this is not an easy thing for women and women entrepreneurs. The fact that you might have liked to have been an entrepreneur, but it was not available to you because you had to select one or the other, it's not entirely fair. I don't have any children, and I have been an entrepreneur, and I built and sold a business and all of that. But again, I made the reverse choice. I'm deeply at peace with my life choices, don't get me wrong, but I made the reverse choice, and I've been able to benefit from being able to be solely focused in that way. I have a husband at home who his responsibility is to make sure I can do what I do. So I'm deeply grateful for his humility, his willingness to support me and back every play that I make. But I'm basically benefiting from, say, the 1940s structure of where a man would go out to work and have a woman at home. I have that situation but reversed now, and I can see how powerful it is to have that support that's dedicated to the success of our little family. That's Thanks. So that's my cohort down the front there. Yay, Standard Chartered. So I think there's also, if we bring it back to opportunity within artificial intelligence and generative AI and robotics and things like that, looking for funding, taking a unique angle, my offer out to everybody, and riffing on your stat of next year, 2025, the work in organisations would be equitably distributed between artificial intelligence and humans. What you could be looking for as something to play with is, how are you going to serve machines as customers? So I'm a customer experience person, and my thinking at the moment is, okay, we are likely to be selling to algorithms. Think about let me give you a for example. If somebody is like looking for a new credit card, or a business is looking for a new corporate credit card, it's likely that in the not too distant future, I'm talking within 3 to 5 years, they will send out their agentive AI with a bunch of parameters of things that's important to them in that credit card to go and find the right one to them. So if you're thinking from a customer experience perspective, the emotive image that you put on your website to like get the human to feel aspirational with this brand, oh my God, that credit card can open up the amazing holiday doors for me, because it's going to fall flat with an algorithm. It's not going to care, because it doesn't care. So how do you create some strategy in your business, or something in terms of what you might found as an entrepreneur to serve machines as customers? Because that's your next cohort of customers. You're going to be selling to algorithms and servicing APIs. That would be my offer and my challenge to you.
Thank you, Katya. And that's such a different perspective of looking at where the future is headed, right? So thank you for sharing that. So here's the common question that I was referencing earlier. What I would like each one of you to do is share one concrete action, one step that the people in this room could take to leverage artificial intelligence and robotics.
Start with learning. And you've got the She Loves Data, which is a hands-on, in-person course, which you should absolutely go and do. But engage in the learning, because, there's a lot of, look, as a tech person in engineering, worked in tech all my life, my specializations, cloud, security, now AI, there's a lot in the market of keeping like a boulder between those that know and those that don't know. And fortunately now there's a lot of information out there. And you've heard a few courses that you can go do and get some just general information, so that you are more empowered to engage from wherever you're coming to be part of this.
Any questions for the panel here? All right, I didn't see any.
Speak up.
There, right behind you.
Very interesting. I'm keen to know, Katya, about this selling to machine. It's a kind of fascinating idea. So you're saying that the corporates and individuals would have kind of a buying agents, and then the organizations have to figure out a way to sell to. Could you just speak a little bit more about that? It's a very, very kind of a concept I'm struggling with, so would help some amplification.
It's already happening. So for example on this that happens today, printers that are connected to the internet can order their own consumables. So it can order its own toner, it can order its own paper, it can order its own replacement parts, it can order its service and things like that. That's already a thing. So if you sell those types of consumables, you're not actually selling to the procurement department anymore. You're selling them to a printer that has a set of variables that it uses to go and get the things it needs from the marketplace. So this is almost like search engine optimization when it first started. So if you think of it like that, so when you wanted your website to be found, you actually had to go, okay, well, it's not that people are going to just find it. I have to put keywords in here. I have to put stuff into the code that enables the search engine that people are using to find my content. So it's similar in that way. So in order for your product, your service to be selected by an AI-assisted person or by an AI in the procurement department whose job it is to go and order more toilet paper for the building or whatever that is, you need to be speaking the language of the algorithm. So an algorithm whose job it is in procurement to go and get more toilet paper might not be the same as a person who just goes and selects one because they like the packaging. That AI might go with 15 different variables about sustainability, about quality, about number of sheets, about like supply chain, about is child labour involved, all of those sorts of things that the person probably wouldn't have capacity to do. So it's a different way of making buying decisions. And if you are not set up in the way that you sell, in the way that you engage with customers, to be able to answer those kinds of requirements, then you will lose out to whoever it is who can. Does that clarify?
Excellent. I think I get that part of a consumable part because the machine is connected. I'm just struggling that look, as an individual, when I'm looking for a credit card, how would in that scenario, how would that happen?
Do you want, yeah, okay.
Sorry, I'm just...
No. Let's clarify.
I've got an example that might make more, anyone in this room that has looked for a job in the last 5 years, you have already sold to an AI, right? When you put in your resume for any job today, a bot will review it before it goes to a human. And so it is absolutely so. And that is not a machine piece, right? That's a CV going in. And there are apps today that you can do what Katya's saying, which is you put, including, of course, the GenAI ones, where you put the JD in and you put your CV in, and it will tell you what percentage chance you have of getting through that bot. A bot is already making a lot of decisions like that that have a lot of information going in before it gets to a human. And recruitment is one of the ones that took it up very early on. Does that make more sense? Like, clarifies it?
Another framing on this one is so we bank large multinationals, governments of countries, other banks. The way that we bank them isn't asking them to come and use our online banking platform. The way we bank them is via API. Or pipes direct from our systems into their systems. And that is also a customer experience. How are we curating that customer experience and making it friction-free for them to choose us as the pipe that they want to use? That's another aspect of this that's not necessarily like ordering toilet paper, but it's about how you interact with your customers. Because our customer on that side is not necessarily the treasurer of the bank. It's the ERP system that the bank has that we need to interoperate with.
Thank you. Any other questions?
That went really sideways.
Maybe just one for the panel. I quite like the idea of the 4-day work week. I think everybody kind of likes that idea. And I wonder, from your perspective, because with AI, it means high productivity. How do we from your view, shift mindsets from higher productivity means greater output and shift it to say higher productivity means an opportunity for balance with the 4-day?
Well, actually, both are not antagonists, right? I was, again, synchronicity. 2 days ago, I was watching a video on informatic e-commerce website in my home country, right, France. And it's an entrepreneur who created his e-commerce company. And he implemented the 4-day work week, right? Because thinking that, the well-being of his employee was important. He thought that of the overall initiative, so in France, average working time is 35 hours a week already. So we're already nearly 4.5 days. But so he reduced it to 32 hours a week, right? And he budgeted this initiative like 1.5 mil a year. This is what he thought it would cost his company to implement. But actually he realized that happier people are more productive people, as was just mentioned. You don't take that much, cigarette break or lunch long hours. And similarly, the next initiative that he took, and he said, okay, I'm the CEO of a big company that is now listed on the, CAC 40, but it's like my pay is 10K a month because I don't need more, right? Like, so I have redistributed whatever the overall company has earned to the basic lower salary in the organization, increasing every basic salary by 25%. And similarly, he didn't actually see any decrease in their own productivity. I think, and a lot of northern country in Europe, right? I think about Norway, Denmark, and, other where actually, like childcare services is not that developed, right? A lot of them actually, you stop working at 3:30 in the afternoon. That doesn't mean that you're not more efficient, right? Again, when you come at work and you're very focused, when you also have the ability to define what is your own work-life balance, right? And I always take my example. I never work between 6 and 9 because I need to take care of my children. I don't mind working after 9, right? 9 to 11, actually I don't mind, it's I'm more quiet, and when I need to have big discussion one-on-one with my team, usually that's the slot that I select, right? Because I have time to listen. And I think that's it. That's what technology allows us to do, right? To also choose, I think that it's very obsolete to think that the longer we spend at work, the more efficient we are. Actually, that's not true. And many study has proven that the happier we are and, the better we are in our organization, the happier we are, we stay in our organization, better retention rate is an efficiency for the organization because it is very costly to lose someone, hire someone else, train someone else, and big tech firm, in the past, before they started firing everybody, but big tech firm had understood that, right? Like, happiness is key for your productivity. So I think it's by those small experiments that are being done, right? And then, a big organization like the Global Work Congress, doing study about the possibility of a 4-day work week, and that wouldn't actually damage the overall productivity of the organization. I think what the mindset should change, and I like what the CEO said, is like, why do we need to always have more, right? Like, why do we need to have, I don't know, the salary of the big boss of the company? I've just, like, why do you need to earn millions and millions nowadays? That's true, right? We're talking about gender equality. What about talking about what are the top salary and the lowest salary in your organization, right? Are you actually putting the right money in the right thing rather than putting it in some very expensive IT system that maybe, I don't know. I think there's an overall reflection that needs to happen on where do you invest your money, and we don't invest enough in people. And I'm not talking about training, right? I'm talking about giving back happiness and time and well-being.
Yeah, just if I may add to what Celine said, actually the most progressive organizations now are moved into managing their workforce through output rather than input. Actually, it's almost passé. If you take any good organization, like if you take IQQ, gives a lot of flexibility to the managers to obviously manage input, but it is a policy that we will only manage the organization through outputs, which essentially means that if you want to deploy a 4-day week, you do it. But here's your deliverables, and if your team can come together and deliver it at a shorter time, so be it. So in that context, I think AI is very important, because those teams which can harness the power of efficiency which is provided by AI, then you fit it into an output-based management philosophy, output-based corporate philosophy, which just defines broad parameters that we have decided after all these things that we will grow in Asia 12% to deliver an EBITDA margin of, say, 30%. That's what is defined. How much you deploy, how many people you deploy, all that is completely left to the team in that particular region, and this is exactly how IQQ runs it. So then that is why there's a huge incentive for us to unleash these technologies. We have already actually deployed bank transaction monitoring. You'd be amazed what AI does. It reads bank statements. It notifies everything. A human being will obviously make mistakes. It just doesn't make mistakes. It goes through 30, 40 bank statements in a minute, finishes it, analyzes it. Our regulator wants us to do it, tells the manager or the administrator, call this transactions. Phenomenal. So that's the type of applications which are happening in the world. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're almost at time. In fact, we're a little over, but I think we can take one last question for the group. Sure, one last question here. All right. Looks like then we're finishing on time then. Thank you so much for the lovely sharing and unique perspectives that you just shared with us today. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all so much. If I could just invite you here for a little group photo, please. The camera's just right at the back over there. Yeah, just in the center of the scene.